It's great to be here. It's especially an honor to be here with so many of my colleagues. My successor, Shelley Porges, who actually now runs the GEP, which is the interagency task force that you talked about, and both of us came and are here really because of the vision of Lorraine Harriton, who is sitting in the middle of the room, who is the person who really started this program when this administration began. And one of the things that was especially exciting to me, I was retired, I left LA, I moved to Maine, I was living on this, I still have this beautiful house on this beautiful lake in the middle of Maine. And was getting a little bored, but I heard the president's speech in June of 2009 at Cairo University. And the president talked about, for the first time, something that I have felt very passionately about for many, many years, which is that entrepreneurship is in the DNA of America. It is central to what America is. It is certainly central to what our economy is, but we've never really used it in foreign policy. And that was to me, a big mistake. And it was kind of running the race with one of your legs tied behind your back. And it was a view that this administration espoused, granted, as Shelley said, with a focus on Muslim communities, and now expanding, thankfully, to the world at large. But I just thought that was a really important change in how the American government was pursuing foreign policy. And when you look at some of the key indicators of economic development, and this has become very much the rage now in the whole international economic development business, is looking at private sector-led development. There are all sorts of different organizations that are involved with this, obviously including our own USAID. You look at the World Bank doing business indicators. I was particularly interested this last year. A lot of times, just when you publish rankings, just the fact of publishing the rankings drives behavior, right? The U.S. News Best Colleges Index drives a lot of what colleges do. Probably the single most important thing, in my view, that the World Bank has ever done is the doing business indicator rankings, because it has driven more regulatory reform than probably all of the pounding on countries' heads and telling them they should be doing this has ever done. So, for example, in the latest doing business rankings, you had the best single improvement in the regulatory environment in the world since the rankings began. Of the 125 economies measured, 183 implemented a total of 245 business regulatory reforms, which was 13% more reforms than in the previous year. The best improvement record was Morocco, which jumped 21 places to rank 94, and it has implemented 15 business reforms since 2005, which I think is interesting and particularly shows the way for that part of the world. And I think we will see a lot more of that in those countries that are going through the Arab Spring that Shelley referenced, and which is clearly related to jobs and the unemployment issues that we know entrepreneurship can uniquely address. So my friend Michael Simmons, who's the organizer of this event, asked us each to come up with one big idea. So here's my big idea. Equity, not aid. We know that there are a great many issues that are impediments to entrepreneurs and to starting businesses. Absolutely education and training is one of them. In the program that we run at the Global Entrepreneurship Program that Shelley's now directing, it is very much about creating an ecosystem in which training is one of the key elements. But frankly, the issue that I think is the single most impactful and catalytic is the absence of early stage capital for startups. And there's been lots of discussion about this and lots of conversation about it, and there are lots of things that can be done to help it. One of the things that we know is very important is the expansion of angel investor networks, which we have tried to do through the program that USAID and the State Department have driven. But the fact of the matter is that the amount of money that we invest in terms of outright grants is many times that which is available in equity. And there was an interesting comment that a good friend of mine, who is one of the most brilliant observers of economic development I know, just recently told me about Korea, which actually attributed the hockey stick in its growth to when the United States stopped providing it aid. And I think that this is true for a lot of countries. One of my favorite African entrepreneurs, Alo Chife from Ghana, who runs the biggest entrepreneurial company that serves sub-Saharan Africa exclusively, that's not an export business, but whose market is in Africa, said that the most important thing that the United States could do to help Ghana is to convert all of the aid that we provide on an economic side, not on a humanitarian side, but for economic development, to equity investment instead of giving it away, investing it. And I think that a lot of organizations are starting to see this. In fact, IFC has just started an equity facility. The IIC, which is part of the Inter-American Development Bank, has a rather successful small equity investment program now for Latin America. And our own USAID is looking at doing the same thing actually in Africa. So my one big concept is if we could turn even just 1% of all of the official assistance, especially that which is given for economic purposes, into equity, I think we'd make an enormous difference in fueling new startups.